Hey, guess what time it is? It's Weather for Weather Geeks time. We're back here on this Monday evening. If you were able to join me on my live stream earlier on, we had a busy afternoon. We had some severe thunderstorms in parts of the valley during mid-afternoon today, and I did a live stream on Facebook, of course, but also our Storm Tracker 21 app, wfmj.com/weather, and you can even watch those live streams on the regular 21 News app. So lots of resources when we go into severe weather coverage online. A busy couple of hours, that is for sure. The air mass has changed a lot after a very comfortable weekend. We've seen moisture push into the region today, and that change in the air mass really was kind of a bumpy ride at times this afternoon. Look at the dew point rise today. At daybreak today, the dew point was still around 50. It was very, very comfortable. But by lunchtime, the dew point was in the lower 60s, and we have dew points in the mid-60s this evening. So it's kind of back to summer after a very, very comfortable weekend. Rainfall totals pretty impressive here, over an inch from Lisbon and Guilford Lake and central parts of Columbiana County, up to about an inch or so in Boardman, about an inch in Latonia, New Waterford, and pretty close to an inch across 62 through Alliance and into Canton as well. Amounts were not quite as high as you went off to the north of 224, but still fairly substantial, up to a half an inch in some spots. We can do some Doppler radar estimates here, and some of these estimates are pretty impressive down in Columbiana County. That might be a little bit overdone, but 2 inches shown on some of these estimates along the Route 30 corridor in Columbiana County earlier on today. This is a look at the radar. Nothing at 7:37. We are quiet. All the rain has slipped off to the east, so the rest of the daylight hours should be just fine. Now, what we'll be keeping an eye on overnight is this activity out across parts of Indiana and Illinois. It's kind of disorganized in nature, but this is all under a severe thunderstorm watch still in parts of Illinois and Indiana. Our latest high-res modeling has changed its tune a little bit compared to a few hours ago, and this is good news for us. It kind of shifts a lot of that Indiana and Illinois action well to our south and west. Now, could we get clipped by a shower and thunderstorm in spots overnight? Yes, as you can see here, 2, 3 in the morning. Might get clipped, but it looks like the heaviest of the action is likely to stay down towards Dayton and Columbus. So again, I'll keep an eye on these trends this evening, but I like the trend over the last couple of hours, suggesting that the heavy rain, or the heaviest of the rain, is likely to be a miss for us overnight. But still, a shower, a thunderstorm possibility overnight, and tomorrow is going to be a different day. I think it's going to be a somewhat cloudy day overall. Not a lot of sun tomorrow. And as far as rain goes, I think there's going to be spotty shower and thunderstorm activity, but unlikely to be as organized as today. Today's activity kind of congealed into a pretty well-defined line in the afternoon. Everyone saw some rain today. Tomorrow, I think it's going to be much more hit or miss or scattered or random in nature, so a different feel to the day tomorrow as far as the nature of the precipitation. Now, that said, the atmosphere is still going to be very juicy tomorrow, and there's at least a low-end risk of some of these spotty storms getting on the strong side. So while I don't think the severe weather risk is as high as today, still can't rule out a couple of feisty storms, even though these will be fairly disorganized in nature during the midday and the afternoon tomorrow. Wednesday, kind of a similar idea. Not much of a boundary, nothing well defined. You could probably analyze a warm front actually on Wednesday as we get a resurgence of the there's my warm front. We get a resurgence of the moisture on Wednesday, and that might lead to a slight uptick in the shower and thunderstorm activity, but I still don't think it'll be as organized as today on Wednesday. Now, Thursday could be a little bit different because this cold front, while it's a sluggish one, is going to be approaching, and this is a day where I could see a better chance of severe weather, kind of like today on Thursday. So that's going to be our next potential trouble spot as far as severe weather goes. Now, it's going to take until Friday before this front goes through, so it's going to stay pretty muggy all the way through Friday. Sometimes these dew points are a little too high, but I think it's going to be quite muggy through Friday, at least upper 60s for dew points, if not 70 or so some of the time, all the way through Friday. So a very, very muggy midsummer week. Nothing unusual for the middle of summer, but pretty uncomfortable stuff. Now, notice over the weekend, while it's not going to be quite as refreshing of an air mass as we just had over the past weekend, it will be a more comfortable air mass in time for the weekend. Dew points aren't going to drop into the 40s like they did at times Saturday night into Sunday here in Northeast Ohio, Western PA, but 60 on Sunday is better than 70, so that's our next kind of refreshing change. coming our way. What about the longer range? You know, we're into the middle of summer now, and it gets harder and harder to find distinct air mass changes at this time of the year. It's kind of like being in the dead of winter, in a typical winter anyway. Not the winter we just had. But in a typical winter, when you're in the dead of January, it's hard to pick out big fluctuations. It's going to be cold. And just like in July, it's going to be warm. There's going to be the occasional front that changes the humidity some and changes the air mass a little, but they're not going to be real significant changes in most circumstances. The overall pattern over the next week or so is going to be a real hot one across the Rockies, across the Plain States, with this ridge of high pressure building over the middle of the country. We're going to be on the periphery or the fringes of this. I think for a lot of the next week or so, we're going to have some occasional pretty warm weather. We could get well into the 80s on Wednesday and perhaps during the middle of next week again, but we're not going to be under the ridge. We're not going to be under the center of the true heat. So any sort of heat around here is going to be kind of just typical July heat, maybe a little above average, but this is not the kind of pattern over the next 2 weeks that's going to produce a bunch of 90s. It's not going to produce a heat wave. It's not going to produce the kind of heat that gets to be unbearable and gets to be a big story. It's just looking pretty typical for the month of July over the next couple of weeks. Now, will that change as we go into late July and August? Well, the jury's still out on that. But I just don't foresee any sort of sustained, unusual heat, the kind of heat that becomes a big news story. In other words, 95 for 4 straight days. I don't see that coming over the next couple of weeks. So good news for your energy bills, and if you just don't like the heat, if you're like me, and I'm not a fan of the 90s myself. Maybe if you own a pool, that would be great. But otherwise, not too many people are fans of that kind of heat. So I think you'll like the next couple of weeks, at least in that respect. You may not be happy with me about the rain chances, especially this week. We've got the Trumbull County Fair this week. A lot of people are outdoors at this time of the year, and right through Friday, we've got at least a chance of a shower and a thunderstorm each and every day. Thanks for watching tonight's Weather for Weather Geeks. I'll have updates throughout the evening on those overnight rain chances, and look for a full update tonight on 21 News at 11 o'clock.